They've been married for over 2 decades and have raised 3 children. But before walking down the aisle, Jeeva and Sulojana Sam had only spoken once, for 15 minutes.
We actually met longer than most Indian couples did at that time. Yeah. Ours was an arranged marriage, which is an Indian tradition, which basically means that your families work through a go-between, call the person a broker, if you will, who basically deals with both families. And so our families did the talking first and felt that there was a match here that we could actually meet. And so that's how we met.
With the little time they had, they asked a few questions before making one of the biggest decisions of their lives.
We knew, they were from Canada. So we looked up the map and, the one question I had was, how cold does it get in Canada? He told me it would be very cold, but I didn't have a clue.
In India, we're considered to be middle-class people. And so middle-class people usually meant that the people themselves didn't do a lot of the housework. You had help. So I had to let Sulojana know that when she came to Canada, there would be no maid service.
And so with that, the Sams got hitched in a wedding ceremony that involved their entire community and a lot of food.
Our wedding was in the morning, so there was a feast at her place right after. And then that same evening, when we get to our place, or the place where we were staying at the time, which was my auntie's place, then we had another big feast.
Oh, wow.
That evening again.
After 26 years, Jeeva and Sulojana Sam make marriage look easy, but it hasn't always been that way. They spent the first 6 months of their marriage apart, and when Sulojana finally arrived in Canada from India, they both had to make adjustments.
We were living in a small town in Saskatchewan called Kincaid. On a good day, when the wind was blowing right, the population was about 350. As a matter of fact, we were driving from Regina, where the airport is, down to our house in Kincaid. And all of a sudden, she said to me, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. And she said, where do all the people live?
For me, leaving my family behind in India and then, coming all the way to Canada and just a, whole new culture and then, a new husband and, being a pastor's wife. And then 3 weeks later, I lost my dad. So that was hard. And then a few months later, I was pregnant and had had our first child that same year. And so it was lots of adjustment, but we got through.
And as most married men will tell you, the transition from bachelor to husband was a learning experience, Jeeva says.
And so all of a sudden, this whole thing about, sharing your house with another person, sharing the bathroom with another person. The Indian culture does it the opposite way of the way things happen in Canada. Here you fall in love and then get married. Well, there you get married first, then you fall in love. And so in some ways, your first year of marriage is really more like a courtship. And you're just getting to know each other.
Although neither of them can pinpoint exactly when it happened, they both agree that falling in love was a process.
I think for me, it took a few years. I was in love with him, but I think as we lived together and, as the years went by, the love grew.
Like there were times when we would take vacations, just the two of us. And I think maybe those times is when we, maybe acted more like lovers than than just, a husband and wife. And so maybe those were some of the times that made us realize that that we had fall in love. It wasn't just an act of the will.
As they travel down memory lane, they say even through their ups and downs, their marriage has been rewarding.
It's the companionship, the sharing life together, having children, and sharing our responsibilities together, traveling, we've traveled a little bit and just to enjoy life together, God put us together for a reason. So might as well enjoy it, and make good use of it.
It's the fact that you have somebody there for you who loves you unconditionally, and as much as you have your differences and annoyances, that your love is solid, and so you never have to worry about it.
And one way they've kept their marriage solid is by making each other top priority.
Next to God, it's Jeeva, and there are times, I'm not perfect. I haven't done that. Sometimes it's children, So But, he was very understanding, and I think that's the main thing, that you're going to go through your ups and downs, but, it's a commitment.
And that's not just in theory, but you have to reinforce that. You have to show your spouse by your calendar, for example, that they are the number one person in your life.
For many couples, the romance either cools or dies completely, Jeeva says, but that simply hasn't been the case with these two.
In the early days, there's a lot of what you might call romance in the marriage, going out, eating out, candlelight dinners and wine and all that kind of stuff. And then as time goes on, that gets replaced by dirty diapers and dishes and everything else. Well, those were never really part of our routine, as we were going or growing in our marriage in the early years. We probably eat out and do that kind of stuff more now than we did before.
After years of working together in their church, the Sams say the inability of many couples to put their partner's needs ahead of their own and the overall lack of commitment in secular and Christian marriages today is troubling.
Because of the high rate of breakups, a lot of couples don't have good role models. So if you grew up in a broken family, then you do not know what it was to be a Christ-centered marriage, because a lot of people are not hanging in there long enough. The other thing that I'm noticing also is that a lot of couples today live together before they get married, and they have this false belief that just because you live together, you're going to have a long-lasting marriage. Well, all statistics, prove the exact opposite.
And when it comes to hanging in there, they say couples need to understand conflict is a part of marriage and is bound to happen, no matter how long you've been married.
Some people think, going through your marriage, the grass is greener on the other side, and then you go to another person and you leave this one, and then, it's the same thing. You're going through the same thing, and, maybe you have to look back and see, am I being the right person? Am I working through my problems, or am I, just jumping, from one, person to another and, not resolving the problems. Just grass is not greener.
Or if the grass is greener, it also means there's more manure there. So, so if you want the green grass and you're willing to put up with the manure, go for it.
Us up, blind date.
Having married and then counseled many couples on the verge of divorce, the Sams say that marriage is in trouble. That's why they're taking the Love Dare.
We need to do something with our couples before something happens. Quite often, we're there to help with them once they're at the stage where they're saying, I don't think we can make this thing work. So instead, why not start with them when they're young in their marriages and along the way.
And by taking the dare for 40 days, they hope to also improve their marriage and maybe even learn some new things about each other.
And especially when you've been married together for a while, you do fall into certain patterns, and I'm sure there are certain ways in which I still take Sulojana for granted, and I could be, doing more, and so I believe it'll make our great marriage even greater.
The Sams have raised 3 children, so I couldn't resist asking them if their kids are open to arranged marriage.
No, it's a no to them.
Yeah, their reaction is exactly what we just showed you.
Their big question is, how can you marry somebody that you don't know? Yeah, because I understand them, the way the Canadian, culture is, and, if I was born and brought up here, I probably would have taught the same thing.
It's not the arranged marriage itself that's responsible for where we are today. It's how we've grown. I mean, our desire is that they will have learned something, from our example, that they will know to make wise choices. Then maybe they begin to realize that maybe mom and dad do know a thing or two, even though they never dated.
The Love Dare continues every day until February 9th. Follow the Sams as they blog and post videos online. You can also join the dare and post your own comments. To find out how you can take the dare with someone you love, visit 100huntley.com/lovedare. In St. Catharines, Ontario, I'm Bridget Entry for 100 Huntley Street.
Hi, we're marriage mentors Jeeva
and Sulojana Sam, and we are the co-authors of this book, The Unbreakable Marriage.
Welcome everyone to Living the Next Chapter. My guests are actually really, really close to my house, which is great. I talk to guests around the world, and my guests are like literally I could walk there, which is great. So I would love to welcome my guests to the podcast. We're going to talk about their premarital courses that they do for couples. They're on a mission as well to save marriages from divorce. They have this new book, The Unbreakable Marriage, and I'm so happy to have my guests on the podcast. Welcome to the two of you. Hello, how are you both?
Great. Good to be with you today.
Yeah.
It's great. We're both in St. Catharines area, Niagara area, and I could probably walk over there right now and continue the interview. It's so great to have you both on the podcast. I was watching a video clip I mentioned before we hit record of the two of you on a Canadian television show. They were doing a story about the two of you and how you met, and I found it fascinating. So I would love for you to kind of give us a recap of that. I'm going to put a link to that actual video of you on that show. But I'd love to get a story about how the two of you met. You're both smiling and happy. So this is like a dream come true. I would love to hear how the two of you had met originally. Can you take us back there?
Yeah. So we're both, raised in the Indian tradition. And so even though Sulojana grew up in Malaysia for the early part of her life, and I grew up in India, and then came to Canada, when it came time to get married, then the Indian tradition is an arranged marriage, which basically means that your parents look for a suitable life partner for you. And then in our case, they arranged an introduction in person, which doesn't always happen. Maybe it didn't always happen back in those days.
Yeah.
And
so I think my dad, he's very strict. So he gave us 15 minutes to talk to each other.
15 minutes?
I know. And that was long for him.
Okay, can I ask, I can't imagine 15 minutes to meet somebody that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Can you give us a little sneak peek about what happened in 15 minutes of conversation? Like, what are you talking? You don't talk about the weather. Right?
No. Well, we did talk about the weather in Canada.
Okay.
She was in India. I'm in Canada. I think, well, first of all, because it was arranged by the parents through a broker, we already had some information about each other.
Okay.
And so we weren't going into the conversation like totally cold.
That's right.
Yeah. And so one of the main things for me was to make sure that Sulojana was aware of the realities of life in Canada. Because the middle class life in India means you have help, hired help to do a lot of chores and stuff for you. Whereas here, especially where we were going to go at that point, was the middle of southern Saskatchewan, right smack on the prairies. Then I wanted to make sure that she was prepared for coming there and taking the lion's share of the work that would normally be done by hired hands back home, and the weather and so on.
Yeah. I asked about the weather, and you told me, it's going to be very cold. And I thought, there when it rained, we got our sweaters on. So I didn't know what snow was all about, how cold it would be.
She had no grid for cold, and especially cold on the prairies, which is minus 30, 40 at times.
Yeah. And there's a lot of space in the prairies, right?
That's right. Before we go there, just to let you know a little bit about the arranged marriage, David, is, the two people, they start dating, getting to know each other, but they, the parents, they take the responsibility to check out, say with my dad, he was very, very fussy, very picky. There were other guys that came. He said no to all of them. And he still went and checked out, he talked to Jeeva's teachers and, some of the family, relatives, neighbors. I'm not sure. He checked him out. And it's just that not the person, the whole family. They check out the family kind of thing. It's like two families coming together. So our parents did the work, so they look at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
when here, most of the time, it's good. Dating is good, but the emotions are involved, right? When you make those choices.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give a little background. So it's not like, in 15 minutes we made a decision. The parents do all those checking. Like I said, my dad was, very, there was at a point I thought, I don't think he's going to like anybody, Now I can see, our children growing up. I thought if I have to choose somebody for our children, we'll get fussy too, picky, and we would look at things in a different perspective. So, So I came here, and even, leaving the family, it was difficult. And then when I was getting into the plane, I was thinking, first I was excited, because I grew up in Malaysia. I was kind of adventurous, going to a different country, so it should be good. And the day came, I thought, what was I thinking? I had to leave all my family, and and I knew, when I got in the plane, I heard God say, I said, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but He said, I'm taking you to Canada for a reason, with a plan. And here I thought, everybody would be Christians, you grow up in India, anybody who's white, we thought they were all Christians.
Okay.
Because when the English people came, they are the ones who introduced Christianity to India. So that's the, mentality I had. But when I came here, things were a little different. Yeah. So I came to Saskatchewan. That's where Jeeva was pastoring. And he picked me up from Regina, and we were driving, and I was looking on both sides, and I thought,
this was in February too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's no homes and nobody, on the streets. And I turned to him and I said, I have one question. Where are all the people? And then again, my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think this was a good choice. Nobody lives here.
Where's he taking me in the middle of nowhere?
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So we went to this small town with 300 people. Wow. So, So, it's how you look at everything, the mentality with what you come in. My dad said, there's no such thing as divorce in our dictionary. And that's the mentality. So I thought, okay, God has a plan, and I'll go with it.
We'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an amazing story.
Commitment.
Like, I can't imagine like people who date for years and years and try to build a relationship together, and compared to the two of you and how this has turned out for you. Like you're meeting somebody and building a life together, right? And doing it really at the same time, figuring out life and figuring out each other. It's an amazing story. And it's great that you're still together and you still love each other. And I know Jeeva's Prince Charming, I can tell, but it's great to see how this is all unfolded for you. And what I love talking to you and about the book is that you are focused on helping couples and really working with couples to strengthen that bond of marriage and be an example, which you are, but then as well help couples to have that really solid base that took you probably some time to build as strangers to each other, really, right? And I'm really excited about the book as well. So can we jump forward a little bit in the story then? Can you tell us how things went in those first few years and how you kind of built this relationship together?
Well, the first few years were bumpy. Yeah. Again, mainly because we didn't know each other. And Sulojana got pregnant fairly soon after she came to Canada. And so then you're focused on preparing for a baby coming. And then when the baby comes, you're focused on the baby.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I'd made a transition from the small town where she came into the city of Regina. New church.
One more thing. 3 weeks after I came to Canada, my dad passed away.
Oh,
so, so I couldn't go back. That was difficult.
Yeah. So I would say, it probably took us a good 3 to 4 years before we got to a place of even like knowing each other. And then, of course, Sulojana had to adapt to life in Canada. Very different from India. By the grace of God, we got to a place where, we were, committed to, we were always committed to each other.
Yeah. I think one thing I still remember, Jeeva, I think he expected me to change quite fast. So I could tell, he was getting a little frustrated. That's one thing. We had to kind of adjust with each other, right? Yeah. So it is an adjustment, and it's the commitment with which you walk into marriage that kind of keeps you going. And then our daughter was born, and it was like one thing after another. It was rough. We are still learning about each other, and so but we made it through with the help of God.
It's amazing. Okay, so where did the idea come from and the mission that you have to encourage couples to stay together, to not go down the path of divorce, and how relationships can be very rocky and tragic for some people? Where did the desire come for the two of you to start this mission that you're on to help couples? I love this.
Okay. So it's interesting. You made a reference to an interview on one of, I think it's actually Canada's longest running talk show is what I heard that 100 Huntley Street is. And so the reason they interviewed us is because I think it's 2009. There was a movie that came out called Fireproof. And in the movie, there was a reference to something called a love dare, which was like 40 days where, you did something for your spouse to strengthen your marriage. And so, this television station looked for 3 couples who would actually do every dare for all 40 days and do a little video report, a vlog at the end of each day. And we were one of 3 couples, chosen for it. So at that time, as we were going through it, people would contact us. Because by that time we were like married for 26 years. Yeah. And so it's like, hey, we're having this issue, that issue. Can you help us? And so, we'd say, we'd pray for you, like something very, very generic, because we were not like trained marriage counselors or anything like that. But Sulojana had a sense that this was the beginning of something.
I felt like God saying, the 100 Huntley Street that we did was just the beginning of something. And every time somebody would see us, they would remember, I think we have seen you on 100 Huntley Street.
Nice.
Or somebody from our church, would say, you guys did that. Maybe you should do that again. It really helped our marriage. And every time they came and said something, I felt like God saying, there's something more I want you to do with marriage. And I would tell Jeeva, and he wasn't ready. He was still pastoring. So he would tell me, I don't think that's a good idea. What did he say? I'll let you say.
Say when married couples come to you with, in stress or distress, and you start working with them, they'll suck the life out of you. So let's just not even go there. So Sulojana was fine with that. She just kept on waiting. And then what happened was I was mentoring some, they were all men, who were in very responsible positions, in their companies and so on, just to help them to apply their faith, in the marketplace where they were. And I noticed that after a while, they were getting really good results, but they started to plateau. And when I sought some revelation on why they were plateauing, there was one common denominator. They all had difficulties in their marriage. And so at that point, it's like, okay, I got to do something about marriage. I still didn't act on it right away until there was like a 4 to 5 week stretch where, again, like I can't remember the exact number, but 5 or 6 guys contacted me and said, listen, our marriages are in trouble. And if you you have to help us because, we trust you. We know you have a good marriage and you were on the show, all this kind of stuff. So at that point, I couldn't say no.
Yes.
And so that's when we really decided to launch. Of course, like we've always been aware that the divorce rate in Canada had been climbing, considerably, and North America as a rule. And of course, being in the church, I saw my share of that.
Yeah.
Plus some of the couples that who came to me for marriage preparation, that I thought, they were prepared going into marriage, and they're willing to make that commitment, and yet many of them didn't last.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so all of that came together, and it's like, okay, we have to do something.
So when people were coming to the two of you and talking about your marriage, talking about this clip they saw on television and asking you for help, did you have a moment where you thought to yourselves that who are we to help couples? Like, we're not experts, we're not right, but people saw in you something where you could help. Did you kind of struggle with that a little bit at the beginning? Or why would anyone listen to us?
Yeah, well, we certainly didn't have the credentials, like academically, to do anything of that nature. And so we had, actually, it's a very good question, because we had to give that some thought as to what would we call what we are offering.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't call it counseling, because we were not recognized as marriage counselors. Coaching was the word that we had tossed around. But we thought, no, we do more than coaching. We can do helping people turn their marriages around. And so at that point, the word mentor, really came to the forefront. And so we thought, what, in mentorship, we are taking the benefit of our experience, whatever expertise that I had gained from all those years of pastoring. And we did not want to do something that would immediately go to the masses. The kind of the pattern that we felt that God was asking us to do was to work like one-on-one, couple on couple, with couples who thought they were too far gone, and then to, get them back on track. So it's kind of funny, because when most couples are at that stage, it is very easy for them to take the divorce route. It's even very easy for counselors, and sad to say, sometimes even pastors, to say, you know what, gee, guys, that's a lot of stuff you're allowed to build up. And if they are really bent on getting a divorce, they would very reluctantly, like tell them it's okay or not stop them. And so we had to, so we knew that if we found couples at that point who, for whatever reason, it could be faith-based or, just a culture-based, whatever, would say, you know what, if there's any way that we can save our marriage, we want to do it. So that's the profile of couple that we were looking for. And so anyway, that's...
And when you said, I felt like, because I was bringing it up with Jeeva, that, we should be doing this, but, we didn't have a curriculum or nothing. And I was thinking, I'm telling him we should be doing this, but I felt unqualified. I was thinking, we don't have a curriculum. We don't have anything. So we have to totally depend on God to provide, right from the basic. It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary stepping into it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of wonderful, curriculums and courses that other people have put together. So we could have very easily just picked one of them and co-opted it, and used it, to bring about the breakthrough that people are looking for. But we felt like, I think what we bring is unique.
Yeah.
And, we've been influenced by a lot of other people out there who have gone ahead of us and done wonderful things. But the way that we put it together is not going to be like what anybody else is doing. And so, I kind of had some things going on in my head about how to do it. And then, we were on
we did a small video, right?
No. Even before this, before we got the curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on a plane trip, like from Toronto to Los Angeles. And somewhere up, about 38,000 feet above the ground, all of a sudden, I get this download, and so I took out the iPad and quickly started typing, everything that came to mind at that point. And we both looked at each other and we said, whoa, that's a lot of stuff in there. But let's just put it away for now. Let's sit on it, pray over it. And when we came back, which was about a week or so later, everything kind of flowed into a pattern. that we could see, okay, there's something here that we can take couples through. But what Sulojana is referring to is how do we let people know about it? Like, how are we going to find those couples?
Yeah.
And so I actually hired a couple of coaches to help with that process of like, how do we make ourselves visible and known? Yeah. And so,
yeah, that's when we did a very short video of, the outline. I think we did the outline and how we are going to do things. And we are looking for, 2 couples, I think, at that time. Yeah. To practice.
You didn't say that on the video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the coaches actually gave me a philosophy that I was not very familiar with. They said, like, whenever you start something new like this, that is, nobody else has done what you're doing in the same way that you're doing it, then you have to adopt the philosophy of ready, fire, aim. And so you just have to do something, and then you can make, corrections as you go along. And so as long as so don't think that like if the first one has to be perfect, just go with what you got. And then your clients will tell you, where you need to make changes, based on the way they respond to it, which parts are easier for them to do, which parts are maybe a little bit, like unfathomable, because you get used to your own way of thinking and lingo and so on. And so, lo and behold, the very first couple, as Sulojana said, we made the video, put it on Facebook, and somebody that I knew the wife, contacted us right away and said, "Hey, we're in that place, like, can you help us?" And so we just started, practicing on them.
Yeah.
And they got the breakthrough. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, we're onto something.
It works.
Yeah.
So I heard somebody say that, you don't have to be good to start, but you have to start to be good.
Yeah.
Right? You actually have to start. You have to do something, right?
That's what we did.
Exactly.
And what I love too is that I have this opinion that students make great teachers. So even as you're learning as you're building this way of helping couples, in the process of you building, your community comes around you and they get to watch you develop this, learn and grow, right?
Yeah.
And settle on something that serves your community. And your community gets to watch and be involved in that process. And they're like, I remember when this wasn't even here and now it's here. Now there's a book. Like now there's support for couples. So people love to follow the journey as well. Right. And part of our audience are authors, and they're maybe looking at a blank iPad and they don't have any ideas. And I love how you got new perspective at a different elevation in that plane. And that you just got a new perspective, right? As you can look down and go, wow, all this information is here now. There's a lot of authors that are listening and they're afraid to start. They're at that stage where people are telling them, you got something here and you could help people. But they go home and they're like, well, where do I even start? What would you say to somebody who wants to be a coach or help people or write a book, and they're not sure where to begin? What would you say?
Well, I'll tell you about the book writing process, because, for most of my adult life, I've been writing sermons.
Okay.
And so one of the things I discovered about sermons, see, the old school teaching was make sure you got the outline like perfect before you start writing. So everything was on the outline. Now, to a certain extent, that worked, in my early years of preaching and so on. When it came to book writing, yes, we had a vague outline, Now, in our case, because our book was based on the process, in some ways, it was not that difficult. But if I were to start from scratch today, and just write a book, and this is what I used to do when I wrote sermons, is after a while, I would just write down everything that came to mind, as I'm thinking about a particular passage of scripture, like I preached this morning, and that's what I did all week. Just wrote down everything, and then later on, you go back and you weave it together. So, and even when we were writing the book, we didn't write the chapters in the order in which they are in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, because even though I had an outline, all of a sudden one day, it's like, hey, chapter 7 is coming together really well. And I know I'm still on chapter 3, but I'm going to put 3 on pause. And I'm just going to, because the flow is there. And so I'm going to focus on 7. And so So you have to not be too rigid, because if I waited for to complete 3 the way I liked it, and then had to wait for 4, 5, and 6, the way 7 was flowing might not have flowed again.
Right.
Yeah. And so my advice would be, start with what you've got. Yeah. And in terms of coaching, you don't have to be an expert to coach. You just need to have a little bit more experience or expertise than the people who want your coaching. Yeah. And the thing that I learned from my coaches, which was very, very helpful, he says, Jeeva, people are not looking for your method. They're looking for results, man. And if you can show them that, by the time they finish working with you, that their marriage, will not be the same, because that's what they're looking for. So keep it totally focused on results. Don't confuse people with the process, because if somebody wants the results badly enough, whatever process you suggest to them, that is what they will follow, because you're the expert.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we also attended a few other, marriage, seminar kind of things, week-long things. We actually went to California. There was a church by the name of Bethel. They were doing a love after marriage, week-long thing. So we went there. We thought, we'll go attend, see if we can learn some things from them. Right? Yeah. And then, it also helped us work on our marriage.
Exactly.
Because, none of the marriages are perfect. So, there was lots of things we worked on, got our, more united in our marriage. There were things that came out, needed to be dealt with. It was really good. It's a process. That's how I think we learned how to, hey, maybe we can help others too, going through all of this. We even attended, and then even recently we attended.
So we're always looking for ways that, we can go, just for ourselves, not for the sake of the curriculum. And quite often we'll pick up something. Because everybody has their unique, twist on doing things. So something that, this couple that was talking about, like the most recent one that we went to, there's something there, that we can, incorporate as necessary. But I would say, like, in terms of people who are getting started, just get started.
Yes.
And that one of the things you can do with clients is you can always ask them, what other things would you like me to help you with? And your clients will give you the curriculum.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Next time we get together, we'll focus on, on children and marriage. Okay. The next time, whatever the case may be, and let your clients help you build your curriculum. You can always go back and rearrange them and so on. But you just have to get started. If you just wait for everything to come together to get started, we would have never started, first of all, and we would have never evolved the way that we did, to where we are right now. And I'm not totally sure that where we are right now, this is the complete process. We're likely going to make some additions and some modifications as we go along. But this is the best place that we've got it fine-tuned right now. And that's good enough because it's producing results. Our very first which in retrospect looks rather skeletal, curriculum actually produced results. And that's what the couples came to us for.
Nice.
And now we maybe take them a little bit deeper. And the one thing we realized is that as time went on, we started getting more what I would call difficult clients, in the sense of people who were, maybe experiencing 8 or 9 out of a 10 scale, on a scale of 10 difficulties. Was in the beginning, they may have been 6 and 7s. Yeah. So then we had to go and figure out, how do we help some of these couples? When do we maybe refer them to someone outside of ourselves to get some deeper things taken care of and so on?
Okay. So let's look at the book now. I'd like to kind of talk about how the book came to be and what readers will find when they purchase the book. I'd like to kind of get that kind of background. And I love when authors hold up their book as well. That's always nice. So if you can show me the book again, I'd love to see it if it's there with you. I love seeing the book on camera. That's always fun to see as well.
All right. So this is the book. The Unbreakable Marriage, How to Stand in Unity and Withstand Adversity. That's the subtitle.
Yes.
And so we actually had not really thought about writing a book. But I was at a point, well, let's put it this way. All of our clients pretty well come from referrals. And mostly from pastors, and friends, and people who know us on social media. And we got to a point where it was like, that referral stream is not as robust as it used to be. And so we need to find other ways of finding clients. And so I started working with a coach. And the first thing he said, it's also a Christian guy, he said, you know what? Your message is way too important for you to keep it to just a small group of people like you are. Instead, what you want to do is to put it in the book form. And he said, you already have the material. You don't have to go back and research and stuff. And then, it's made available for anybody that wants to use it to get the breakthrough that you're getting for couples. But he said something else is going to happen. When you write a book, you are immediately perceived as an authority.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people come to you now, it is not just, Jeeva and Sulojana Sam, marriage mentors. It's Jeeva and Sulojana Sam, marriage mentors and authors of The Unbreakable Marriage, the book that shares the process that has brought, guaranteed breakthrough for couples facing breakdown. And so at that point, people will not question your credibility, because the book does give you credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, I know it's a huge undertaking, but he says, if you want to, I'll keep you accountable. And so, we both looked at each other and said, you know what? We've had quite a few people tell us over the years that we should be writing a book. Not necessarily on marriage, but just writing a book.
I was putting it off for a long time because I knew it was lots of work.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, because we already had the curriculum, in a sense, we actually even written down some of those things. Most of them we did on video and one-on-one teaching with people. So in some ways, it was not that difficult. However, once we hired an editor to help us with the process, he said, "Guys, great content, but I'm sorry, the way you got it written is not very good." Is basically what he said.
Wow.
Which was kind of a shock to me because I'm used to writing sermons that people listen to and so on. And he said, when people listen to that style of writing is very different from when you're writing to be read.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're using a lot of in-house lingo and stuff that you know what it means.
Yep.
A couple sitting across from you in a mentoring session knows what it means, but your average reader will not. And he said, the experience tells us that the majority of people who will buy a book on marriage are women.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are parts of your book that are a little bit on the harsh side that may turn a woman off.
Really? Okay.
And prevent them from picking up a book that has lots of other good stuff. So that kind of feedback was not easy to take. But I took it to heart because I knew this guy, he knew what he was talking about. And then I had to do a fair bit of research in order to incorporate. So that's the other thing that he said. Some sections of your book are actually incomplete. You think that they're complete, but there's more that is out there.
More research.
That you need. Yeah. So he recommended some books and I took his words to heart. So it probably extended the process by another 6 months, before I could get it all done and put it together in a form, that flowed and so on. So the entire process, probably took close to 2 years.
Yeah.
Here we thought we'd have it done in a few months. But that's okay. In the end, it came out,
Mm-hmm.
the way it came out is the way, we believe it was meant to be. And here we are.
And it's been very helpful with the mentorship process as well. We, get the couples to buy the book and we just follow it, right from the beginning till the end. And before they come to our sessions, once they become part of the mentorship, we get them to read the chapters and then, we just kind of summarize a little bit and ask them to ask questions, and then give them homework.
Yeah.
So it made it so much easier as well.
Yeah. So David was asking, what is somebody going to get when they get the book, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, first of all, we had to share our story, a little bit of the arranged marriage story, and how this book came to be, and then we start by writing about some fundamental principles that are woven throughout the book. Then we take them to assessing your marriage and the assessment tools that we use. And then the first major block is what we call shifting the spiritual atmosphere. Very simple principle. If you want plants, for example, to grow and thrive, they will do way better in a healthy environment rather than in a toxic environment. Okay. So it's the same for marriages. So we teach couples how to shift the toxicity, which unfortunately is often there when they come to us. And the next part after that is removing spiritual blockages. So what are some things that quite often this refers to hurts from the past?
Yeah. Any trauma, abuse.
Or sometimes it's just unforgiveness that people are carrying along with them for a long time. So we teach them how to, take care of those. And then
it's like bringing a baggage into your marriage, So we try to get rid of them.
Yeah. And then the next chapter in the book is about growing in communication. So again, some very simple ways in which you can improve your communication considerably. And then the next one, which is a biggie, is restoring peace following conflict, because every marriage will have a share of conflict. And so, but how do you restore the peace? How do you resolve it is going to determine whether that conflict turned out to be something healthy or something destructive.
Yeah.
So conflict by itself is neutral. But how you handle it can make or break a relationship. And so we teach couples some very concrete methods that have worked very well for us and for couples that we worked with. And chapter 7 is called Going Under Covers. Any guess as to what that might be about?
Maybe to be a spy? No?
Yeah, I spy with my little eye.
Nice.
Yeah, so we talk very openly about the sexual connection. And then the last 3 chapters, Lorna, you want to?
Yeah. Then we talk about making time for each other. And the next one is marital finances. That can be a major issue. Yeah. It was one of the issues with us as well.
Yeah.
And then setting boundaries in your marriage. Yeah. So
some of these things, we were talking earlier about, dating first and getting married and stuff, and sometimes dating, for years. One of the things that always shocks us is even when people have known each other for years, they haven't talked about some of these things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they get married and it's like, you're bringing how much debt?
Yeah. Right.
Like this kind of some things that people keep hidden from their future spouse. Yeah. For fear of embarrassment, or they might be rejected, that type of thing. And so the thing is, eventually all these things will come out. So what we help couples to do is to bring everything out in the open and deal with them like honestly and forthrightly, on their own. If somebody can use our book, we have an e-course as well, where we've done videos with the content, a companion workbook and a gratitude journal. Use them all together. The best way I believe to use our book is actually to work with another couple, not necessarily us, like even a couple from your family, from your church circles, who has been married a little bit longer, and we'll keep you accountable, because that's one of the big things we find, Dave, is that without the accountability, people will not stick to the program.
Yeah, you're right. So can you talk a little bit about your mission to help 50,000 marriages? You talked earlier about how your coach was telling you to expand beyond the smaller group that you were serving. You have a big goal, and I love your big goal. Can you explain the big goal to us?
Yeah. This is for sure we cannot do it on our own.
Yes.
So we are looking into, mentoring or training other mentoring couples, so that, they can also do what we are doing. And the other thing is, we want to work with other churches, businesses, and also train some mentoring couples, that who have been married longer. Then they in turn can, mentor other couples who are newly married.
Yeah. Well, one of our pastor friends did a survey in his church, which is like a very good sized church, and he found that most couples, their difficulties in marriage started in year 2 of marriage.
Okay.
But most of the time, the pastors didn't find out about it till year 4 when they were ready to give up. And so he, came up with this innovative concept of matching couples in year 2 of marriage with couples who've been married for like 10 years or longer, let's say. And so one of the strategies that we're following is to teach them how to use our, book or e-course as the curriculum to build those relationships. And so what happens is, if let's say, for example, a younger couple in our church gets to know us at that level, then there's a friendship that is formed that goes beyond just the contents of what was learned.
Yeah.
That they can contact us, when they run into some kind of an issue, like rather than immediately throw their hands up in the air and say, like it's not working, even to talk with one other person and say, hey, this thing came up. I have no idea how to handle it. Can you give us a hand? And so if even if it's a couple that they're not, it's not we doing it, but a couple that's familiar with the content, they can say, hey, do you remember, there's a chapter there, where the Sam's taught you, how to actually go about doing that. Oh, okay. Can we help you walk through it? Like that kind of stuff. So a lot of those things can be handled, where people don't have to go to seek professional help or increase the counseling load of their pastors. Or in business, there's a lot of productivity that is lost because of relational stress. And so this is one way that even a company can establish those relationships, among their employees.
So that's how we are hoping to get the 50,000. And you talked about the e-course.
Yeah, and the book is definitely part of the strategy, because the book by itself will help people.
Yeah.
And people can all over the world can get this, so it reaches like a larger audience because of the book. So we just kind of feel like just starting. So
it's exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting. So part of when I look at my statistics for my podcast, in the top 5 countries who listen to this podcast, includes India. India is number 5 for me. So my audience is listening to the two of you. I don't know if you would like to greet them or give them say hello, but they're listening to us right now, and I'm sure they're interested in the topic. They're interested in the two of you. And, I would just love for you to kind of to say hello to them and mention the book and let them know as well, because they are listening, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah. Now, the one thing about India is most people in India have English as their common language.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things we want to tell our Indian audience, because many of you who are listening to this are also in arranged marriages. And some of you may not have had the kind of option that we had, to meet and get to know each other a little bit. And one of the things we're hearing, which really disturbs us, is that the divorce rate in India has been going up quite a bit, lately. And a lot of younger couples are giving up on their marriage shortly after they get married.
That's right. Yeah. So, our one thing is, don't give up. Don't give up. There's hope for you, and there's help out there for you. And, if it's not us, approach somebody from your family or, in your church circle. There'll be people, willing to help you, and, you can get our book too.
Yeah.
It's not in our Indian language yet, but those who can read English, it's here to help you. Or send us a message. You can go to our website, thesams.ca, and send us a message, and we'll be glad to help you. Don't give up. God brought you together, and He wants the best for you. So you can work it all out.
What a great message. And the two of you are just sweet. I love talking to the both of you. I can tell that you still have that love for each other, and how a 15-minute meeting has brought you to today. I shake my head. I don't know if my wife could fully comprehend myself, Dave, in a 15-minute conversation. So I'm impressed. I'm inspired by listening to the two of you and your journey, and I'm wishing you well. And I'm hoping that as people listen to our episode, that they will be encouraged. One thing I'd like to ask before we go, a couple tip that you could share for couples who've been married for a long time, maybe, or a short time, but there's a lot of silence in the home where husband is off doing his thing and the wife is off doing her thing, and they're in different rooms, they're in different schedules, they're doing different things, but they're not talking. How do we break the silence in our marriage and get back to those early days when all we could think about and all we could talk about was each other in our marriage? How do we break the silence? What would you say?
Well, one of the simple things you can do is find something to do together that you both would enjoy. Yeah. And so like something that is very, like non-threatening. There'll be no chance of, any kind of arguments breaking out or anything like that. Yeah. Like one of the things that Sulojana and I started doing in the last couple of years is actually putting jigsaw puzzles together.
Perfect. Yeah.
Which is challenging.
Yeah, we started with 300 pieces and then 500.
We're at 500 now. We're not sure we want to tackle 1,000. But there's a lot of interaction happening, and I know I've seen couples do the same thing with card games, with certain board games. So that's a good way to break the silence, because you're communicating about something that isn't controversial or isn't going to bring up anything in the past and so on. Yeah. So that'd be a good place to start. Like one of the things that we find quite often, what is behind the silence, is stuff that you held to yourself, So even if you are not quite ready to ask each other for forgiveness, forgive them like from your heart, and just let go of it, and begin to see your spouse not as the person who hurt you in all these ways, but as the person who, was such a delight to be with. And so change the framework, the lenses through which you see them, and then that'll help you break the ice.
Yeah, and when there's been silence for a long time, one person has to take the first initiative step. So like Jeeva said, do the forgiveness, and also nobody's perfect. We all think when there's a conflict, he's the one or she's the one who at fault. But search in yourself. We believe. Because of our faith, ask God, where do I need to change so that I can be a better person? And then, do the, things together, start with that and then work your way through, where were you having conflicts all the time? If it's finances, then sit down and talk. And the communication is important. Sometimes, I feel like we are really stubborn, because he or she, did all this to me, I'm not going to initiate. We become really stubborn. But marriage is like we consider it's one life, once in a lifetime thing. Let's make it the best. You're living with that person, all the time and for life. So make it the best and take the initiative, put the stubbornness aside and humble yourself. And, you can, you can restore your marriage no matter how bad it is.
And you know what? If you're not able to do it on your own, get the help you need. Seek some help outside. Even if only one person's, willing to get the help or has the heart to get help, then you go get the help you need. We tend to work with couples only, but there are lots of others who will work with just, either the husband or the wife. And so just like Sulojana said, you look at what you can change, without always thinking about how can I make them change. I think if you can shift that focus as you change, trust me, the other person will notice that you're changing and things will change.
It's amazing. thank you both for making time for me today. Like I said, we are blocks away from each other, so you are the closest podcast guest that I've ever had on my show, and a great combination as well to have you together. And I love your relationship and the laughter you have, and I see the little looks you give each other. I can tell you still like each other, which is amazing. So it's really great. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for
in the show notes for everyone to find you and reach out to you. And if they have questions, they can reach out as well, right? And they can
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. For sure. Glad to tackle them for them.
Yeah. And thanks for the opportunity, David.
So great. So we're going to have to go and grab a coffee or something and meet in person as well. But
yes,
thank you so much.
Love to do that.
Thank you so much. And I have a book to buy, so I got to get one. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Hey, look, we're having such a great time talking to authors around the world. If you are an author and you would like to be on this very show, I would love to talk to you. livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com is the best way to get in touch with us. There you'll find our social media and blah, 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 la-di-da, and such. You, author, soon-to-be author, new author, currently writing your book author, published author, we need you here. The seat's empty, microphone set up, we're waiting for you. livingthenextchapter.com. We would love to have you on the podcast. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you should be here. We'll see you at livingthenextchapter.com.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.